football is more complicated than stats. Florida had one possession start their last from their own 25. Georgia started every possession past their 25. Details matter. Yeah. Yeah, and again, football's a numbers game. If you got to go 80, 70, 80, 90 yards and Georgia only goes 15, 20, of course, Florida should have more yards. And Florida didn't execute. Georgia had an excellent run defense. Georgia held Florida to 0 points multiple times, missing a field goal, missing 2 field goals rather. And then on a 4th and 13, I thought Florida should have kicked a field goal. They didn't. But I mean, it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have, the final score wouldn't have changed at all had Florida made those field goals. Anthony drops another comment. As painful as it is for me to say, Mullen, not a good recruiter. You're right, Muschamp, and I think he meant McElwain recruited way better than Mullen. Just don't think he can get us to a championship. So I think another thing to add to the comment that where do we go from here? From Vibes Live Chicago. Number one, Florida. What Dan Mullen has to do at the end of the season, he has to let go of Todd Grantham. That's a given. You have to get rid of Todd Grantham. And, if you want to go more into detail, if you want to get rid of some more of your defensive staff, because Todd Grantham is not going to be a guy that is going to get you to what you want to be, which is winning the East consistently, winning SEC titles, and playing for a playoff and playing for national titles. Nick Saban said this week that he plans to coach for another 10 years. So I'm going to go on the assumption that Nick Saban is going to get most of those 10 years. So essentially you have to ask yourself this question. Does Florida have what it takes to compete with Georgia year to year? And what does Florida need to do that? And then compete with Alabama when you get to the SEC title. Number one, that's not going to happen with Todd Grantham. And that has nothing to do with what happened today. Florida's defense played good. And they did what they could, especially with Florida's turnovers and playing against short fields. But you have to make that change, especially after the season Florida had last year. Florida could have done something big last season, and the amount of missed tackles, the amount of times that Florida had guys not lined up correctly, and then the same thing happened against LSU where the defense just absolutely implodes. You have 6 men in the box when LSU's doing one play counter trey, and only thing LSU did in that game was they looked at the formation. They had one side overloaded, and if Florida oversides that one side, they'd run the counter. And if Florida runs it even, they run to the power side because that's where your tight end and your 2 tight ends are. And that was literally the only play they ran rushing for more than 300 yards when an Alabama team couldn't even get 100 on them. So it's one of those things you have to ask yourself, what do you expect? And I don't think you can do that with Todd Grantham. Vibes Live Chicago asks another comment. Do you believe Dan is the guy for the job going forward? Yeah, I think he's the guy, but you got to make some. Like I said, you got to make some coaching changes. I think he's the guy on offense. You get your football only facility come next offseason. Let's see if that changes anything. The preview videos look spectacular as they should. So we'll see what that looks like, and then you got to make defensive changes, as I just said. Yeah, again, Anthony, the UF is a top 5 school in the nation. One wants to put more money in recruiting. Better than recruits mean better results. Better results mean better money for the program. Yeah, and it's just one of those things. What did Florida want to value after Tebow left? Florida went hard academics, and you're seeing it's paying off on the academic side. Florida is now a top 5 program, according to what most people go by, the U.S. News, whatever it is that they go by, the magazine. Florida's top 5 in that now. They were top 10 for a while. They keep moving up and up, and Florida takes some pride in that. It's not making an excuse for the football team and the other athletics. But that's a factor. And if your guys are just joining us from what I said earlier about recruiting, I think Florida fans have an unrealistic expectation, and it's the facilities are behind for Florida. A lot of the things they do are outdated that Georgia and Alabama are on top of, and Florida expects to be with Alabama, Georgia, and Georgia and Alabama spend $3 million on recruiting. Florida spends $1 million. I'll give you a quick story. I was listening to again what Denny Thompson was saying on the Sports Den. This was last Friday. Alabama has this was a couple of years ago, 7 private jets. So, making a weekend trip, Friday to Sunday, especially, when you have a bye week, you could go in one state, say, let's just say Florida, in the state of Florida, for example, you could go to Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, take a stop in Gainesville, Tallahassee, or any small town in that circle. Boom, boom, boom. If you have to drive or you have a limited amount of private jets, it makes it that much harder to recruit. It makes it that much harder to get in front of guys and face-to-face and shake their hands, So recruiting is definitely an issue, and it's one of the reasons why Georgia outplayed Florida today. And Kirby Smart said, you can outcoach coaching, but you can't outcoach recruiting. And, you saw today Georgia, to no surprise, they got dudes top to bottom, first and second string, and Florida doesn't have that. Yeah. Kirby just boat raced Florida with a backup quarterback. Yeah. Think about that. Think about the Stetson Bennett that Florida played last year and then the Stetson Bennett that plays this year. Now, I don't think I missed some parts of the game. There weren't many times where Stetson Bennett threw it downfield, and I thought that's what Stetson Bennett and his Georgia offense was going to do to Florida. It was interesting. I began the show. Florida, the matchup that everybody talked about coming to this game was, what was Georgia's defense going to be like against Florida's offense, as deservedly so. That was, Georgia's, the strength is their defense, and Florida, Anthony Richardson was the main topic. But, it had the matchup that was most interesting was the Florida defense and the Georgia offense, because I thought, going off of what Florida played against LSU, and LSU run for 300-plus yards on the ground, that Georgia was going to attempt to do that. And then what happens is you load the box, and Stetson Bennett can throw over the top like he did against Arkansas and against a lot of the teams that Georgia's played already. And that didn't happen. Florida did a good job of containing the run game for the most part, and doing what they could, especially with the 3 turnovers that Florida had throughout the game. But, it's just the thing that gets to me most is that Mullen's an offensive guy. And if you look at the big games so far this season for Florida, pretty much all the games they've lost. And I'll include Tennessee in this one too. So the 5 games, Bama, Tennessee, Kentucky, LSU, and Georgia. All 5 games have not been a good first half offensively for Florida. All 5. Florida got out to a 21-0 deficit at the early in the second quarter. They make it 21-9 at halftime. Florida barely leads Kentucky by 3 at halftime, and they don't score in the second half. Florida was, I think, tied, or they were up 3 against Tennessee. I can't remember exactly at halftime. Florida only scored 6 points in the first half against LSU before Florida gets a Hail Mary, whatever you want to call it, a go route that LSU didn't decide to cover, and Florida somehow gets 13 points going at halftime. And then today, you get 0 points. Now, Florida moved the ball, but then your kicker can't make a field goal. You go for it on 4th and 13. You should have kicked the field goal. And, that's credit to Georgia's defense. But you're coming off a bye week. And understand Georgia did too, but that's when your game plan has to be really, really good. All the really good teams that have good coaches, when you give them more time to prepare, they're usually better. And that wasn't the case today. Look at Alabama every time they play in a playoff game. When you give Nick Saban 3 weeks to prepare for a playoff game, he always was pretty good. So um, so that's that, and if they rolled with Anthony Richardson to start the game as they should have, I thought he's the better quarterback. He gave you the best chance to win today, and he made freshman mistakes. And that's what I said after the LSU game. It's fine that you want to start Anthony Richardson. That's cool, but I understand when you throw him in there, he's going to do things that scratch your head as he did today. And I don't have a problem with it. Just the fans that want that, and then they get on Emory Jones' case when he throws picks like that. But just understand that Anthony Richardson is more prone to do the same thing.